The cold metal floor pressed against Sarah Shun's face as consciousness slowly returned to her. Her head pounded like someone had used it as a hammer target, and every muscle in her body ached. She tried to move her arms, but thick metal bands held them tight against her sides. The air smelled strange, like burning plastic mixed with something sweet and rotten. Sarah opened her eyes and saw walls made of some kind of clear crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The room was small, maybe 10 feet wide and 12 feet long. There was no furniture except for the metal slab she was lying on, no windows, no doors that she could see, just the glowing crystal walls and a ceiling that seemed to stretch up into darkness. She remembered the attack now. Her ship, the Terra Nova, had been doing a routine patrol near the Kepler system. Nothing special, just checking for asteroid movements and taking some readings. She was the commander, but it was a small ship with only 12 crew members. Most of them were scientists, not soldiers. The enemy ships had come out of nowhere. One moment her crew was laughing about something on the bridge, and the next moment alarms were screaming and the ship was shaking apart around them. The aliens had used some kind of weapon that made their engines stop working. Then they hit the Terra Nova with everything they had. Sarah had ordered her crew to fight back, but they only had basic defense weapons. The Terra Nova was built for exploration, not war. They managed to damage one of the alien ships before their own ship started breaking apart. She remembered the hull cracking open, the air rushing out, her crew members being sucked into space. She had tried to reach the escape pods, but something heavy had hit her head. Now she was here. Wherever here was. Sarah tried to sit up, but the metal bands held her down. She could move her head enough to look around the cell. The walls seemed solid, but there had to be a way in and out. Someone had brought her here. As if reading her thoughts, one of the crystal walls began to change. It became cloudy, then transparent, then disappeared completely. 3 figures walked into the cell, and Sarah's blood went cold when she saw them. The aliens were like giant insects walking on 2 legs. They stood about 7 feet tall, with long arms that ended in sharp claws. Their skin was dark green and looked hard like armor. But the worst part was their heads. They had huge black eyes that took up most of their faces and mandibles that clicked when they moved. Sarah had seen pictures of these creatures in the military files. They were called Zephyrians, and they were bad news. The one in front wore what looked like a uniform covered in strange symbols. It carried a small device in one of its clawed hands. When it spoke, the device made the clicking sounds into words Sarah could understand. "The human female is awake," the alien said. Its voice through the translator sounded cold and emotionless. "Good, we have much to discuss." Sarah tried to keep her face calm, but her heart was racing. "Where am I? What happened to my crew?" The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Your crew is dead, human. Your ship is destroyed. You are aboard the Zephyrian warship crushing Callan, and you are my prisoner." The words hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. Her crew dead. 12 good people who had trusted her to keep them safe. Young Martinez, who talked about his girlfriend back on Earth every day. Dr. Singh, who had 3 kids and showed pictures of them to anyone who would look. All gone. "Why am I alive?" Sarah asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. The Zephyrian moved closer to her metal slab. "Because you, Commander Chun, are going to serve a very important purpose. You are going to help us show the galaxy what humans really are. Weak, helpless, unworthy of the space you claim." Another alien stepped forward. This one was even bigger than the first, with scars across its armored skin. "The High Inquisitor Vexvik has decided to make an example of you, human. Your interrogation will be broadcast to every world in the Galactic Consortium. Billions of beings will watch as we break you down and show them how pathetic your species truly is." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold room. "You're going to torture me on television?" Torture. The first alien clicked its mandibles again. "No, human, we are civilized beings. We will simply ask you questions about your species, your military, your weaknesses. And when you answer honestly, the galaxy will see that humanity is nothing more than a collection of soft, weak creatures who somehow learned to build starships." The third alien, smaller than the others, spoke for the first time. The broadcast will reach every world under consortium protection. When they see how easily we defeated your ship, how helpless you are now, they will understand that resistance to our expansion is pointless. Sarah's mind raced. This was not just about her. The Zephyrians were planning something big, and her interrogation was meant to be the opening act. They wanted to scare other species into submission before they made their real move. When does this broadcast happen? She asked. Soon, Vexthik said. We are still gathering the audience. Representatives from 47 different species will be present to witness your examination. The rest will watch from their homeworlds. It will be quite the spectacle. The alien moved even closer, its black eyes reflecting the blue light from the walls. You should feel honored, human. Your species will be remembered throughout the galaxy as the example of what happens to those who think they can claim territory that rightfully belongs to superior beings. Sarah stared back at the creature, keeping her expression blank. And after the interrogation, what then? Then you will be disposed of, and our fleet will proceed to your Earth, with the galaxy watching and knowing how weak you are. There will be no one to help your planet when we arrive. The metal bands around Sarah's arms and legs suddenly loosened. She sat up slowly, rubbing her wrists where the restraints had been. The aliens did not seem worried about her moving around. Why should they be? She was one human on a ship full of enemies, with no weapons and no way to escape. You will be given time to prepare yourself, Vexthik said. Clean yourself. Rest if you can. We want you to look presentable for the cameras. In 6 hours, you will be brought to the interrogation chamber, and your performance will determine how the galaxy sees your entire species. The three aliens turned and walked back toward the wall, which became solid crystal again as soon as they passed through it. Sarah was alone once more, but now she understood what she was facing. This was not just about her survival. This was about the survival of every human in the galaxy. The Zephyrians were not just planning to invade Earth, they were planning to do it with the blessing and support of dozens of other alien species. And her interrogation was designed to make sure no one would lift a finger to help humanity when the invasion began. Sarah lay back down on the metal slab and closed her eyes. She had 6 hours to figure out how to turn this situation around. 6 hours to find a way to save not just herself, but her entire species. The odds seemed impossible. But Sarah Chun had not become a starship commander by giving up when things looked bad. She started planning. 6 hours passed too quickly. Sarah had used the time to think through everything she knew about the Zephyrians and the other alien species in the galaxy. She had also done some physical exercises to get her blood moving and clear her head. When the crystal wall dissolved again, she was ready. 4 Zephyrian guards came for her this time. They were bigger than the ones who had visited her before, and they carried energy weapons that hummed with dangerous power. They did not speak to her, just motioned for her to walk between them as they led her through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that hurt her eyes to follow. The ship was huge. Sarah had known that from the military reports, but walking through it was different. The hallways were wide enough for 3 humans to walk side by side, but they felt cramped because they were built for creatures taller than humans. Everything was made of the same glowing crystal as her cell, casting blue light that made shadows dance on the walls. They passed other Zephyrians who stopped to stare at her. Some clicked their mandibles in what she was learning might be their version of laughter. Others just watched her with their big black eyes, like scientists studying a bug under a microscope. Sarah kept her back straight and her face calm. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. The guards brought her to a massive chamber that took her breath away. It was shaped like a bowl, with rows and rows of seats rising up from a central stage. And those seats were full of aliens. Sarah had seen pictures of some of these species before, but seeing them in person was overwhelming. There were the tall, thin ethereals with their pale skin and large heads. The rock-like stonemen who looked like walking boulders with arms and legs. Creatures that looked like giant spiders, others that might have been made of living metal, and dozens of types she did not recognize at all. All of them were staring at her. In the center of the bowl was a raised platform with two chairs. One was clearly built for a Zephyrian, with sharp angles and dark metal. The other was smaller and looked almost comfortable. That one was obviously meant for her. Above the entire chamber, massive screens showed her face to the audience. She could see herself on the displays, looking small and human among all these alien creatures. She realized that these same images were being broadcast across the galaxy to billions of other beings. High Inquisitor Vexthek was waiting for her on the platform. He wore ceremonial robes covered in symbols that probably meant something important to his people. In his claws, he held a device that looked more advanced than the simple translator from before. "Sit," he commanded, pointing to the human-sized chair. Sarah walked to the chair and sat down. The material was surprisingly comfortable, which somehow made the whole situation more unsettling. The Zephyrians had prepared carefully for this moment. Vexthek activated his device, and his voice boomed through the chamber. "Citizens of the Galactic Consortium, we gather today to examine a specimen of the species that calls itself human. This creature was captured during our righteous defense of Zephyrian space against human aggression." Sarah almost laughed at that. Her Science ship had been in neutral space, not Zephyrian territory. But she kept her face blank and waited. "We will learn today what this species truly is," Vexthek continued. "Are they worthy of the space they claim? Are they capable of standing alongside the great civilizations of the galaxy? Or are they simply another primitive species that has stumbled upon technology beyond their understanding?" The alien audience made various sounds that Sarah guessed were expressions of agreement. Clicks, whistles, grinding noises, and things she could not even describe. Vexthek turned to face her directly. "State your name and position for the record." "Commander Sarah Chun, Terran Defense Corps, serial number 7749 Delta Charlie." "Terran Defense Corps," Vexthek repeated, making it sound ridiculous. "A grand name for such a small military. Tell me, Commander Chun, how does your species defend itself when you have no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no venom, no armor? How do such weak creatures survive?" Sarah had expected this question. "We adapt, we use tools, we work together. We think ahead and plan for problems before they happen." "Tools," one of the alien observers called out. It was one of the spider-like creatures. "Primitive, any species can use tools. We also outlast our enemies," Sarah said calmly. "Humans can run for hours without stopping. We can go days without food or water. We heal from injuries that would kill most creatures. We never give up." Vexthek clicked his mandibles. "Running away is not strength, human. It is cowardice." "We do not run away from our enemies," Sarah replied. "We run toward them." Human soldiers have crossed entire continents on foot to reach battlefields. We chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting, and humans have been doing it for thousands of years. A murmur went through the alien audience. Some of them seemed interested in this idea, others dismissive. An ethereal in the front row leaned forward. "Your bodies are fragile. You cannot survive in the vacuum of space without artificial protection. You need machines to breathe, to stay warm, to stay alive. This is weakness." Sarah nodded. "Yes, our bodies need protection in space. So we build that protection. We do not wait for evolution to give us what we need. We create it ourselves. Every human ship, every space station, every colony is proof that we can make any environment livable." "But without your machines, you die," the ethereal pressed. "Without our machines, we adapt," Sarah said. "Humans have lived in frozen wastelands and burning deserts. We have survived ice ages and volcano eruptions. We have been to the bottom of our oceans and the tops of our highest mountains. We do not need natural armor because we build better armor. We do not need natural weapons because we invent superior weapons." Vexthek was starting to look annoyed. This was not going the way he had planned. "You speak of weapons, but your ship had almost none. A single Zephyrian patrol vessel could have destroyed it. The Terra Nova was a science ship, Sarah explained. Its mission was to explore and learn, not to fight. Most of the people on board were researchers and doctors. They were not soldiers. Yet you fought us, another Zephyrian called out from the audience. Of course we fought. When someone attacks humans, we fight back. It does not matter if we are scientists or soldiers or farmers. We defend ourselves and each other. A creature that looked like it was made of living crystal spoke next. Your species fights wars against itself. This shows you are divided and weak. Sarah smiled for the first time since the interrogation began. Our wars made us stronger. Every human conflict taught us new ways to fight, new strategies, new technologies. We have been perfecting warfare for thousands of years, not against aliens, but against ourselves, and we are very good at it. The chamber became quieter. Some of the aliens were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. We fought with swords and spears, Sarah continued. Then guns and cannons. Then flying machines and tanks and submarines. We have weapons that can destroy entire cities, and we built them before we ever knew other species existed. We did not learn war from you. We invented it. Vexthek's voice was sharper now. You admit your species is violent and destructive. I admit my species is very good at solving problems, Sarah replied. When we need to fight, we fight better than anyone else. When we need to build, we build things that last. When we need to explore, we go places no one has ever been before. Whatever the galaxy requires of us, we find a way to do it. The questioning continued for another hour, but Sarah could see that something had changed in the chamber. The alien audience was no longer laughing or making dismissive sounds. They were listening carefully to her answers, and many of them seemed to be thinking hard about what she was telling them. Vexthek was getting frustrated. His questions were supposed to show how weak and primitive humans were. Instead, Sarah's calm answers were painting a picture of a species that was adaptable, determined, and very dangerous when threatened. Sarah realized that the High Inquisitor was about to make a mistake. She could see it in the way he held himself, the way his mandibles clicked more rapidly. He was going to try something dramatic to regain control of the situation. She was ready for whatever came next. Vexthek stood up from his chair and walked closer to Sarah. His black eyes reflected the chamber lights as he stared down at her. She could see that he was angry, though he was trying to hide it from the watching audience. Let us discuss your military tactics, human, he said, his voice carrying a sharp edge through the translator. When faced with superior enemies, what does your species do? Sarah looked up at him calmly. We win. That is not an answer, Vexthek snapped. Be specific. How do you fight when you are outnumbered? We fight smarter, not harder, Sarah replied. We use guerrilla warfare. We attack supply lines. We make the enemy afraid to sleep at night. We turn their strengths against them and exploit their weaknesses. Stoneman in the third row rumbled something that sounded like grinding rocks. The translator picked it up. This sounds like cowardice. Where is the honor in hiding and striking from shadows? Sarah turned to look at the rocky alien. Honor does not win wars. Victory wins wars? Dead heroes cannot protect their families or their people. We fight to survive and to protect what we love, not to look brave. The chamber buzzed with uncomfortable sounds as aliens whispered among themselves. Many species in the consortium followed strict codes of honor in their conflicts. The idea of ignoring those codes was disturbing to them. Vexthek pressed forward. You would sacrifice your own warriors for tactical advantage. If it meant saving more lives in the long run, yes, Sarah said without hesitation. Human soldiers volunteer for suicide missions. They throw themselves on grenades to save their friends. They stay behind to hold off enemies while others escape. We call it acceptable losses. An ethereal near the front made a sound like wind through broken glass. You send your people to die deliberately? We do not send anyone, Sarah corrected. They choose to go. Humans will die for their beliefs, for their families, for complete strangers they have never met. We will sacrifice ourselves for ideas. Like freedom and justice, even when no one will remember our names. The alien audience was getting more agitated. Several species were making distressed sounds, and some were standing up from their seats to get a better look at Sarah, as if she might be some kind of dangerous animal. A spider-like creature in the back called out, "This is madness." "No, rational. Being guys for abstractions. Humans do," Sarah said simply. "A human soldier will charge into enemy fire to rescue a wounded comrade. A human parent will die to protect their children. A human stranger will risk their life to save someone they have never seen before. We do not fight just for ourselves. We fight for each other." Vexthek was pacing now, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "You make war sound noble, but we have studied your history. Humans fight constantly. You have had thousands of wars against your own kind." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "And every one of those wars taught us something new about combat. While you have been living in peace for thousands of years, humans have been fighting and learning and improving our methods of warfare. We have turned killing into a science." The chamber was much quieter now. The casual chatter and dismissive sounds had stopped. Every alien was focused on Sarah's words. "We fought with clubs and stones," she continued. "Then we invented swords and bows, then gunpowder and cannons, then machine guns and tanks and airplanes. We created poison gas and flamethrowers and bombs that could level entire cities. We split the atom and turned it into a weapon that could destroy millions of people in seconds." A creature that looked like a walking tree branch spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. "Your species created weapons of mass destruction before achieving spaceflight?" "We created weapons of mass destruction before we invented the radio," Sarah said. "Before we had computers or antibiotics or even electric lights. Humans have always been very good at finding new ways to kill each other." Vexthek stopped pacing and turned to face her. "And this is supposed to impress us? Your species is clearly unstable and dangerous." "Our species is effective," Sarah replied. "When we decide something needs to be done, we find a way to do it. When someone threatens us, we remove that threat. When we want something, we take it. When we need to survive, we survive." The High Inquisitor was getting desperate. His grand demonstration was not going according to plan. The alien audience was supposed to see humans as weak and pathetic. Instead, they were hearing about a species that sounded increasingly terrifying. "Your ship was destroyed easily," Vexthek said, trying a different approach. "Your crew died without putting up significant resistance. How does this show strength?" Sarah's expression did not change, but something cold entered her voice. "My ship was a research vessel with minimal weapons and a crew of scientists. You attacked it with 6 military ships using advanced weapons, and we still managed to damage 2 of your vessels before going down." "Minimal damage?" Vexthek protested. "Any damage at all from a science ship should concern you," Sarah said. "Especially since you had to use 6 warships to destroy 1 unarmed human vessel." A new voice spoke from the audience. It belonged to a tall, elegant creature with silver skin and 4 arms. "What would have happened if your ship had been a military vessel?" Sarah smiled, and the expression sent a chill through the chamber. "You would all be dead." The aliens began making louder sounds of distress. Some were standing up and moving toward the exits. Others were talking rapidly among themselves in their native languages. Vexthek raised his voice to regain control. "Empty boasting. Your species has no real military power." "We have several military organizations," Sarah said. "The Terran Defense Corps is just one of them. There is also the Colonial Guard, the Deep Space Fleet, the Planetary Defense Forces, and the Special Operations Command. Each one is larger and better equipped than what you just fought." "Impossible," the High Inquisitor said, but he sounded less certain than before. "The ship you destroyed carried 12 people," Sarah continued. "Earth's main battle fleet has over 50,000 ships and crews numbering in the millions. Our orbital defense platforms around Earth alone could destroy your entire invasion force before it reached the outer system." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages, demanding translations and explanations. Some were rushing for the exits, while others were pointing at Sarah, and making what sounded like accusations at the Zephyrians. Vexthek was clicking his mandibles rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. You lie to create fear. I have no reason to lie, Sarah said calmly. In a few hours, everyone in this chamber will know exactly how accurate my statements are. What do you mean? The High Inquisitor demanded. Sarah looked directly into the cameras that were broadcasting her words across the galaxy. Did you really think we would send unprotected ships into hostile territory without backup? Did you imagine that the destruction of a human vessel would go unnoticed or unanswered? Vexthek's eyes widened as he began to understand. Every human ship carries emergency beacons, Sarah explained. When the Terra Nova was destroyed, those beacons activated automatically. They transmitted our location, the enemy force composition, and tactical data about your weapons and defenses. The alien audience was in full panic now. Representatives from dozens of species were demanding answers from the Zephyrians, while others were trying to contact their home governments. You are saying your military knows we are here? Vexthek asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded. They have known since the moment you destroyed my ship, and they have been moving to respond ever since. The High Inquisitor looked around the chamber at the chaos he had created. His interrogation was supposed to show the galaxy that humans were weak and easily defeated. Instead, he had broadcast a detailed confession of Zephyrian aggression and revealed their military capabilities to every species in the consortium. How long? He asked. Sarah checked an internal chronometer that all human military personnel carried. The response fleet should be dropping out of faster-than-light travel in approximately 4 hours. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The alarms filled the chamber with their harsh sound, but Vexthek raised his clawed hand to silence them. His black eyes were fixed on Sarah as if she had suddenly become the most dangerous thing in the room. The alien audience was still in chaos, with representatives shouting questions and demands in dozens of different languages. You are lying, the High Inquisitor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Your species could not have tracked this ship. Our stealth technology is superior to anything humans possess. Sarah leaned back in her chair, looking more relaxed than she had since the interrogation began. Is it? How do you think we found your patrol ships in the first place? How do you think we knew where to send the Terra Nova? Vexthek's mandibles clicked rapidly. Your ship was on a routine patrol? You said so yourself. I said it was a routine patrol for us, Sarah corrected. We have been tracking Zephyrian movements for months. Every ship, every base, every supply convoy. We know more about your military than you think we do. The silver-skinned alien with 4 arms stood up from his seat. High Inquisitor, if this is true, then this entire operation has been compromised from the beginning. Silence! Vexthek snapped, but sweat was beginning to form on his armored skin despite the cool temperature of the chamber. He turned back to Sarah. Even if your military knows our location, they cannot reach us in time. We will be gone long before any rescue force arrives. Sarah shook her head slowly. You still do not understand. This is not a rescue mission. This is a demonstration. What do you mean? You wanted to show the galaxy how weak humans are, Sarah said, gesturing toward the cameras that were still broadcasting. Instead, you are about to show them what happens when someone attacks us. Vexthek was becoming more agitated by the second he could see that his carefully planned propaganda event was falling apart, but he did not know how to stop it. In desperation, he made a critical mistake. Show her the recordings, he commanded one of his subordinates. High Inquisitor, are you certain that is wise? The smaller Zephyrian asked. Show her, Vexthek roared. Let her see how easily we destroyed her precious ship. Let her watch her crew die. Maybe that will break her arrogant spirit. Large screens descended from the ceiling surrounding the interrogation platform. The alien audience fell silent as video footage began to play. It showed the Terra Nova from the perspective of the attacking Zephyrian ships. Sarah watched as her vessel tried to maneuver away from the ambush, saw the weapons fire that disabled. Her engines witnessed the final explosion that tore her ship apart, She saw her crew members being sucked into space. She saw the escape pods that never launched. She saw 12 good people die because she had led them into a trap, and then Sarah began to laugh. The sound was quiet at first, just a soft chuckle that seemed inappropriate given what was happening on the screens. But it grew louder and more intense until it filled the entire chamber. It was not the laugh of someone who had lost their mind. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized that their enemy had made a terrible mistake. The alien audience recoiled from the sound. Many species in the galaxy had never heard human laughter before, and in this context it was deeply unsettling. Even the Zephyrians seemed disturbed by Sarah's reaction. "You think watching your friends die is amusing?" Vexthek demanded. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, though whether they were from laughter or grief was impossible to tell. "You think that was our military?" "That was a research ship with a skeleton crew and basic defensive systems. That was 12 scientists and technicians, not soldiers." She stood up from her chair, and none of the guards moved to stop her. They seemed frozen by her reaction to the footage. "Do you know what humans call a ship like the Terra Nova?" Sarah asked, looking directly at Vexthek. "Bait." The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Conversation stopped. Movement ceased. Every alien eye was focused on the human woman who was still smiling that unsettling smile. "Bait?" the High Inquisitor repeated. "We knew you were planning something," Sarah explained. "We knew you were moving ships into position for an attack. We knew you were gathering intelligence about human capabilities. So we gave you a target. You could not resist." Vexthek was backing away from her now, his claws scraping against the metal floor. "That is impossible. You would not sacrifice your own people." "Humans volunteer for dangerous missions," Sarah said. "Every person on the Terra Nova knew the risks. They knew they might not come home. They went anyway because they believed in something bigger than themselves." She turned to address the cameras directly, speaking to the billions of beings watching across the galaxy. "You want to know what humans are really like? We are the species that looked at the vast ocean and decided to cross it in wooden boats. We looked at the sky and decided to fly. We looked at the moon and decided to walk on it. We looked at the stars and decided to live among them." The alien audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "We are the species that climbs mountains because they are there. We dive to the bottom of the ocean just to see what is down there. We explore frozen wastelands and burning deserts and the vacuum of space itself, not because we have to, but because we want to." Sarah's voice was getting stronger, more confident. "We are the species that split the atom, cured diseases that had killed millions, and built machines that can think. We did all of this while fighting wars against ourselves that would have destroyed any other civilization." Vexthek tried to regain control. "Your ship was destroyed. Your crew is dead. How does this show strength?" "My ship served its purpose perfectly," Sarah replied. "It brought you out of hiding. It made you reveal your location, your capabilities, your intentions. It gave us everything we needed to know about your military and your plans." She gestured toward the screens that were still showing the destruction of the Terra Nova. "You used 6 warships to destroy 1 research vessel. 6 ships with crews totaling over 3,000 Zephyrians. And we still damaged 2 of your vessels before going down." The implications of her words were sinking in throughout the chamber. If it took 6 military ships to destroy 1 human research vessel, what would happen when real human warships arrived? "But the most important thing my ship did," Sarah continued, "was deliver me to you." "What do you mean?" Vexthek asked, though he seemed afraid to hear the answer. Sarah's smile became even more unsettling. "Do you really think my capture was an accident? Do you think it was lucky coincidence that I survived when my entire crew died? Do you think the timing of this broadcast with representatives from 47 species watching just happened to work out perfectly?" The High Inquisitor's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You wanted to be captured." "I volunteered for it," Sarah confirmed. "Someone had to make sure you said exactly the right things to exactly the right audience at exactly the right time." She turned back to the cameras. Everyone watching this broadcast has now seen Zephyrian ships attack an unarmed human vessel in neutral space. You have heard them admit to planning an invasion of Earth. You have witnessed them torture a prisoner of war for entertainment. The alien representatives in the audience were beginning to understand what had happened. They had not just witnessed a failed interrogation. They had witnessed a carefully orchestrated intelligence operation that had exposed Zephyrian aggression to the entire galaxy. And in about 2 hours, Sarah said, checking her internal chronometer again, you are going to see what the human military does to people who threaten our civilians. The alarm started blaring again, louder this time. Zephyrian officer rushed into the chamber and whispered something urgent in Vexthek's ear. The High Inquisitor's face went pale beneath his armored skin. Long-range sensors have detected ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, he announced to the chamber. Multiple contacts, large vessels? Sarah nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected. Right on schedule. How many ships? One of the alien representatives called out. The Zephyrian officer consulted his instruments. We are still counting. At least 40, no 60. The number keeps growing. Sarah's smile became genuinely warm for the first time since her capture. That would be the Third Fleet, 120 ships, including 8 dreadnoughts, and 15 carrier groups. About 40,000 crew members, all of them very unhappy about what you did to the Terra Nova. The chamber erupted in panic again, but this time it was different. This time, everyone understood that they were not just watching a broadcast anymore. They were watching the opening moves of a war that the Zephyrians could not possibly win, and it was all being transmitted live across the galaxy. The chaos in the chamber reached a breaking point as more Zephyrian officers rushed in with urgent reports. Their clicking mandibles and rapid movements showed their growing panic. The alien representatives were shouting questions and demands. While some were already trying to leave the amphitheater, Vexthek stood frozen on the platform, staring at Sarah as if she had transformed into something monstrous before his eyes. The confident interrogator who had planned to humiliate humanity was gone, replaced by a creature who was beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. 120 ships, he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. That is just the first response, Sarah said calmly. The Third Fleet was already on patrol in this sector. They were the closest human military unit to our location. A new officer burst into the chamber, this one clearly higher ranking than the others, based on the elaborate symbols on his armor. He rushed to Vexthek and spoke rapidly in the Zephyrian language. Sarah could not understand the words, but she could read the terror in both aliens' body language. What is he saying? Demanded the 4-armed silver alien from the audience. Vexthek activated his translator with shaking claws. The human ships are not attacking, they are surrounding us. Sarah nodded approvingly. Standard human military doctrine. Contain the threat, assess the situation, minimize collateral damage. Those ships out there are not just warships. Many of them carry rescue teams, medical personnel, and diplomatic staff. Diplomatic staff? The High Inquisitor asked, confused. Someone has to formally accept your surrender, Sarah explained. And someone has to take statements from all these witnesses about what they have seen here today. The spider-like creature in the back of the chamber made a sound like grinding metal. Witnesses to what? Sarah gestured toward the cameras that were still broadcasting everything. War crimes, attacking a civilian vessel in neutral space, torturing prisoners, attempting to start an unprovoked war through false propaganda. She walked closer to the edge of the platform, addressing the entire alien audience. Every species represented in this chamber has now seen clear evidence of Zephyrian aggression. You have heard them admit to planning an invasion of Earth. You have watched them destroy an unarmed research ship and then celebrate the murder of its crew. The representatives were looking at each other with expressions of shock and concern. Many were taking notes or recording messages for their home governments. But more importantly, Sarah continued, you have learned something about humans that the Zephyrians did not want you to know. What is that? asked the tree-like creature. We are not the primitive, weak species they wanted you to believe we are, Sarah said. We are strategic, we are patient. We plan ahead and we execute those plans flawlessly. When someone threatens us, we do not just react. We respond with overwhelming force and careful precision. Another Zephyrian officer appeared, this one even more agitated than the previous ones. He spoke rapidly to Vexthik, who grew paler with each word. More ships are arriving, the High Inquisitor announced weakly. Human reinforcements. Sarah checked her internal chronometer. That would be the 7th Fleet. They were stationed near the Alpha Centauri system. About 80 ships, specializing in planetary assault and orbital bombardment. The ethereal near the front made that wind-through-glass sound again. How many fleets do humans have? 12 active fleets, Sarah replied. Plus the home defense force around Earth, the colonial guard protecting our settlements, and the deep space patrol watching our borders. In total, about 3,000 ships and 4 million active military personnel. The numbers hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several alien representatives actually fell back into their seats. Impossible, Vexthik protested. Our intelligence reports showed much smaller human forces. Sarah laughed again, but this time it was gentler, almost pitying. Your intelligence was looking at our merchant marine and civilian transports. You mistook cargo ships for warships and research vessels for military scouts. She turned to address the cameras directly. The ship you destroyed, the Terra Nova, was equivalent to a floating laboratory. It carried no military weapons beyond basic point defense systems. Its crew were scientists and technicians, not soldiers, and it still managed to damage 2 of your warships before being destroyed. The alien audience was completely silent now, absorbing the implications of what she was saying. Now imagine what would happen if you faced actual human military vessels, Sarah continued. Ships designed for war, crewed by trained soldiers, armed with weapons you have never seen before. As if summoned by her words, the main display screens lit up with new images. The Zephyrian sensors were showing the human fleet that had surrounded them. Even through the static and interference, the ships looked massive and deadly. Those are dreadnoughts, Sarah explained, pointing to the largest vessels on the screen. Each one carries enough firepower to level a small moon. The smaller ships are destroyers, cruisers, and carriers. The carriers alone hold over 2,000 fighter craft. Vexthik was staring at the displays in horror. We cannot fight that many ships. No, Sarah agreed. You cannot. That is the point. She walked back to the center of the platform, making sure every camera could see her clearly. Let me tell you what is going to happen next. In approximately 10 minutes, Admiral Harrison of the 3rd Fleet is going to request permission to board this ship. You're going to grant that permission because refusing would be suicide. The High Inquisitor opened his mouth to protest, but Sarah held up her hand. Then Admiral Harrison is going to formally arrest you and your senior staff for war crimes committed against the Terran Defense Corps in violations of interstellar law. You will be transported to Earth to stand trial before an international tribunal. And if we refuse? Vexthik asked weakly. Sarah's expression became ice cold. Then those dreadnoughts will demonstrate exactly why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. She turned back to the alien audience. Every representative here will be given safe passage home to report what they have witnessed. You will tell your governments that the Zephyrian Empire attacked human civilians without provocation and then broadcast their crimes to the galaxy. The 4-armed silver alien stood up. What of the Zephyrian fleet? What are their invasion plans? Their fleet will surrender or be destroyed, Sarah said simply. As for their invasion plans, I think everyone here has seen how well those are working out. A new voice came over the ship's communication system, speaking in clear, unaccented human English. Zephyrian vessel crushing Talon. This is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Defense Corps' 3rd Fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. Prepare to be boarded. Vexthik looked around the chamber at the chaos he had created. His interrogation was supposed to show the galaxy that humans were weak and defenseless. Instead, he had given them a front-row seat to watch as humanity demonstrated its true capabilities. "You planned all of this," he said to Sarah, his voice barely audible. "Every detail," she confirmed. "From the moment the Terra Nova entered this system, we knew exactly how this would end. The only question was whether you would be smart enough to surrender peacefully." The communication system crackled again. "Zephyrian vessel, you have 30 seconds to respond before we begin boarding operations." Sarah smiled one final time at the cameras. "And this, everyone, is what happens when someone threatens humanity. We do not just defend ourselves. We make sure the entire galaxy understands that attacking humans is the last mistake anyone will ever make." Vexthik slowly reached for his communication device. His claws were shaking as he activated it. "Admiral Harrison," he said, his voice breaking, "we surrender." The broadcast ended, but not before every being in the galaxy had seen the truth. The Zephyrians had tried to make humans look weak and primitive. Instead, they had shown everyone exactly why humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Sarah Chun had volunteered to be captured, knowing she might die in the process. But she had accomplished her mission perfectly. The galaxy now knew that humans were not victims to be pitied or prey to be hunted. They were apex predators wearing the masks of explorers and scientists. And they had just announced their presence to the universe in a way that no one would ever forget.